And the Word was made flesh, and dwelt among us. And we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten
Christ
of the
Jesus, perfect union of God and man, his incarnation, the biggest event in human history. No surprise then that earthly time is marked by his coming. All earthly struggles can be traced back to this dialectic of God and man personified in Jesus. Christ opens two paths for humanity. From the view of eternity, it is the only decision that matters. Throughout John's Gospel, we see repeated examples of this binary choice. Dialectical events become multi-layered, so to keep this survey simple, I've reduced the examples to dialectic within the same verse, and arranged these verses chronologically as the book is read, and along the way perhaps taking in some of the broader dialectics that single instances inhabit. These contrasts within contrasts extend outwards to encompass the whole dialectic of the book, which folds the end back into the beginning and the beginning into the end.
And the light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not.
Light and darkness, a foundational Johannine dialectic, indeed a foundational biblical dialectic that John carries on from Genesis 1. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And what is the nature of this light? Well, as we will see later, Jesus says, I am the light. His light flooded every cleft and recess of a dark world. Isaiah prophesies, the people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. Darkness is inhabited by those who reject Jesus. Notice their comprehension is brought into question. We will see this repeated failure of non-Christians to comprehend truth.
Which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God.
Now we see God and man represented in a dilemma of wills. It is God's will that we come into the light, but we also have free will to choose light or darkness. Will we submit to the perfect will of our Father, or make our own imperfect decisions?
When the ruler of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine, and knew not whence it was, but the servants which drew the water knew, the governor of the feast...
In chapter 2, Jesus performed his first miracle, turning the water into wine. We witness his power to transform, remembering that these earthly materials he transforms have their higher spiritual meaning. Being in Christ is being transformed. Notice the continuing story of people who are either in the dark or in the know. An epistemological dialectic that generates a network of those who know and those who do not know, emanating from Christ's unique knowledge of the Father. When Jesus told Nathanael that he saw him under the fig tree, the latter cried, "Thou art the Son of God." In the dialectic of the water pots, the servants, having obeyed the words of Jesus, know higher truths than the governor of the feast. Water features throughout John's Gospel, reminding us again of Genesis' creation account. Now we are seeing the transformation of the Old Covenant into the New. There is a dialectic of baptism, being under or above the water, being in the grave and being out of it, being born and being born again. Like water becoming wine, we are transformed.
That which is born of the flesh is flesh, and that which is born of the Spirit is spirit.
Jesus reveals the dialectics of spirit and flesh to Nicodemus, a Pharisee who comes by night, seeking knowledge. Jesus tells him he must be born again. The materialist Nicodemus, shrouded in darkness, cannot comprehend spiritual things at all. He even asks, "Can I go back into my mother's womb and be reborn?"
If I have told you earthly things, and ye believe not, how shall ye believe if I tell you of heavenly things?
Again, we have the Genesis 1 dialectic of heaven and earth blossoming into a dialectic of belief, a choice of believing or believing not. God has come from heaven to earth to reveal heaven to earthlings, but we are so welded to the darkness of the flesh we cannot even believe in earthly truths, let alone heavenly ones.
He that believeth on him is not condemned. But he that believeth not is condemned already, because he hath not believed in the name of the only begotten Son of God.
Having explained to Nicodemus that God so loved the world he sent his only beloved Son to save the world, he presents a theodicy of belief. To believe in the Son of God and be not condemned, or to believe and face condemnation. There is no middle ground between the sheep and the goats in humanity's core dialectic.
And this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil.
Imagery of light and dark keeps bursting through the texts like shafts of light penetrating the world, and the awful truth that humans love darkness more than light. Pick any popular movie today and you'll see a world of evil deeds wrought in darkness.
For every one that doeth evil hateth the light, neither cometh to the light, lest his deeds should be reproved. But he that doeth truth cometh to the light, that his deeds may be made manifest, that they are wrought in God.
These verses are close enough to count together in the dialectic of evil versus truth. Light and darkness are interwoven with truth and evil. Evil's presence in John's Gospel builds up towards the crucifixion. This is interwoven with darkness and light, and a powerful illustration of the sinner shrouding himself in darkness, contrasted with the truthful saint coming into the light.
He that cometh from above is above all. He that is of the earth is earthly, and speaketh of the earth. He that cometh from heaven is above all.
More heaven and earth dialectics, above and below. This time it is John the Baptist espousing the twofold metaphysic. John the Baptist himself is a dialectical figure who enters from the wilderness. When the dark-minded religious leaders ask who he is, he tells them he is the voice of one crying in the wilderness. He heralds the entrance of the Son of God from heavenly wilderness.
He that believeth on the Son hath everlasting life, and he that believeth not the Son shall not see life, but the wrath of God abideth on him.
John the Baptist repeats the message of condemnation Jesus gave to Nicodemus. The Baptist's dialectic of belief contrasts everlasting life with the wrath of God, impacting his listeners with the gravity of the Christ decision. I think I'll pause here. I'd like to try and split these into 10-minute segments as I work my way through John. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for more dialectics. Or don't. That's the beauty of the dialectic.